we break the walls. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Next Gen Training here on the Sparta HQ Network. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always, my 7B brother, the Coach Ferg, in the building tonight. Good to have you guys with us on this Thursday. Always hoping to certainly give you guys information from two bald opinions. Again, we're not experts in any particular field, but we just share just based on our life experiences what has been useful to us as both trainers and coaches. He's mostly a coach. I've been a trainer, but we apply a lot of these principles to life. And, so again, we find these things useful. So we certainly ask as you come in tonight, make sure you hit the like button. Certainly as you come in, really helps the algorithm. Also consider becoming a member of the Sparta HQ Network. Just hit the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And just, again, a few ground rules before we get started. Certainly for those in the chat tonight, certainly appreciate you guys being here. Again, no personal attacks, insults, or threats. Avoid offensive language. Again, we're just trying to get the owner of the channel to do the same thing, but including slurs based on race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. Be courteous and polite to the other viewers, especially those in the chat. So with that, certainly going to turn it over to Coach to ask you, how are you doing with your pies, sir? And for the chat, how are you doing with your pies, your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual health? How are you doing in those areas and whatnot? And certainly if you care to share, you can certainly drop those in the chat as well. We'd appreciate it. But how you doing tonight, Coach?
Oh, what's up, brother Benny, man? How you doing, man?
I am kind of hanging in there. I'll talk about me when I get to my physical part.
Okay, I got you.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just going with the pies, man. I got some dog hair on. I'm trying to find it. Yeah, little dog hair, man. My dog, he be trying to love
Well,
on
first
me.
of all, black dog hair attracts the black like anything else, man. So that's
Yeah,
I be going out and my black, and my dog just wants to just pounce on me. He's like, no, don't touch me, don't
yeah,
touch me.
yeah. So,
Like I said,
yeah,
try to
man.
that too.
As far as my pies, man, physically, it's making adjustments. Um, like I said, as I mentioned last time, man, my arthritis sometimes, man, at the weirdest times, it's a lot in my hands and
Hmm.
arms. So just trying to make sure I keep them flexible
Hmm.
and just following whatever recommendations I get. I got a physical therapy appointment, and
Hmm.
I'm sure they're going to give me some techniques on what to do. But
Right.
yeah, intellectually, man, this again, my days are 24 hours just based
Hmm.
off where I'm at in life. So I read a lot of various things from
Hmm.
information, weather, animals, nature, religion, uh, anything to motivate me
Hmm.
health wise. I'm always tapping into
I'm the
something. Even
same
if I read
same way.
a few pages of something, I usually take something with me.
Mm.
And yeah, and now my wife, she's going on 55, and she's starting to.
You're not supposed to tell your wife's age on TV
I mean,
on
she
the.
she, she embraces it. She loves it, man. So I'm happy that she loves it, and she can be proud of it.
Mm.
And we
For some
joke
reason, I
about.
thought your wife was a lot younger than you. For some reason,
Nah,
I don't
she
know. I thought she
she
was still in her 40s or something. But
she looks lot younger than me,
well,
but
you know how that is, the
yeah.
sisters.
So
You know how that is. But
and just being in those spaces together, and she asked me questions about things that I've experienced a few years before, and I'm like,
mhm.
some of it may be similar, but you're going to experience it for your own self, especially, with us, we all getting older. So just seeing how some things are gradual change, and some things with your body just wake up one day. It's like, oh, I didn't have that pain before, and now I got it.
Mhm.
So just being in alignment with her with that. Emotionally, um, I'm always excited, man, to wake up and see what I can learn new, just about life, and about what's going on in the world. I'm always interested in that. It always reminds me of the days when we were in school. We had to do the current events,
Yeah.
like, and get some local, some national. So I've always been into that, in tune with that, since high school. Um, Spiritually, again, man, I pray. Uh, it doesn't matter where I pray. Sometimes I'm driving. It doesn't matter. I'm in the shower. I can be having a conversation with my wife and just go into a prayer, and so spiritually, I just try to stay grounded. I'm blessed in a lot of ways, and I just try to stay real humble in my blessings, and I always try to at least give back in some capacity
Yeah.
if I can. So yeah, with that,
Yeah, I got you. Got you. Yeah, man. Me physically, I'm a little tired. It's been a pretty grueling last couple of weeks. I mean, obviously we got the winter weather here in the Northeast, and it's also been cold. So it's like a lot of this snow and ice. Well, it's not snow anymore. It's now ice now. That's not melting, and it certainly just being out there shoveling all that, or using a snow thrower, and just a lot of physical labor in addition to my physical training. So I think I'm getting to the age now I can do one or the other, but not both. So it's kind of like, but I'm kind of happy though, because the fact that I do train physically, it definitely helps me out when I am doing that sort of physical manual labor, whether I'm with the shovel or the snow thrower. And it really helps me out in terms of just having the strength to do those things. But it takes a toll on you, and I think in general the fact that it's just wintry here, it does something to you somewhat emotionally, in that it's like, man, obviously the days aren't very long, and so I try to take my vitamin D, because again, because you're not getting as much sunlight, you take your vitamin D to kind of keep that up. But you just feel a bit tired. It's almost like I need a vacation, like almost like a mini. In fact, my wife and I's anniversary is March 29th. And so we're talking about maybe, just doing a quick jet, like a weekend sprint to like Puerto Rico or something like that, just to get, some warm weather, or even Florida, just to get into just another environment, just to kind of break the winter feeling. It's like every time this week it's been like under 20 degrees at nighttime. So it's like I take my dog out, I feel like I got to put a spacesuit on. He's good. I put a little jacket on him and a harness. He's good. But me, I'm putting on the full thermals, and I got to put the heavy coat on, and I got the ski mask on, and I'm just, because especially once the wind comes up. So you just feel like you're just tired of the winter. And you just want it to kind of, I understand it has to come, but it's like, do you have to stay so long? Or like every time I go outside, it's just like, it's like the chill here. So it's been affecting me somewhat. So yes, I'm a little tired. So I think this weekend now we're supposed to get some more. I hope it's not as severe, but hoping to just get some rest this weekend, and not do too much, and just try to recover a little bit. But I just with everything that was going on. It was, definitely demanding. And then also on the inside front, we've been doing a lot of moving, because we got some carpet and flooring replaced. And so we had to really clean up, move furniture and get rid of stuff. And what's happened over the last couple of weeks is that I've done a lot of purging And it was an emotional experience, I got to tell you. I am a bit of a hoarder. And, Coach, you know what this is? You ever see one of these?
Oh yeah, that's old. Hold it up again. What is it? It's an old floppy disk, ain't it?
Yeah, but a 5 1/4. So these are like
Oh
the old
yeah,
ones.
yeah. That's
These are
a
the
real.
early 80s. 3.5 was like the advanced. They came out like in the mid 80s. So I have hundreds of these. 3.5, 5 1/4, old books. I had my old college textbooks, and I'm going through. So it's like I had this pile. So I had this bookshelf full of books. Obviously, there's some books I want to keep. Some I'm looking to give away, like, find like a local book drive and just give these books away. And then some I just threw out. Like my textbooks have no use really, because even the technology that I was covering in that time, it's not even relevant anymore. The CPU processors aren't the same in the 80s as it was today. So those I was throwing away, but I kind of felt a certain way about it because, it's like that was my come up. That was like my life. That was, helped me get my career. I wouldn't have the career now if I didn't go through that. So going through those things was very emotional. So again, as far as my emotional health, I think it took a toll on me emotionally, just purging, even though I wasn't even looking at that stuff, just going through the process of cleaning out your closets and getting rid of old stuff. And now the carpet's all laid down and the flooring says everything looks real nice right now. And I was like, I want to kind of keep it this way. So I don't want to accumulate anything else. So the books that I'm keeping is probably a quarter of what I was either giving away or threw out. And everything else, it's just like, no, I'm not looking to expand. And what helped me out is a friend of mine. He's a bodybuilder, or a retired bodybuilder, but he won a lot of trophies. And he said that he got rid of all his bodybuilding trophies because that was a part of his life that no longer exists anymore. I mean, so what he did, he just took pictures of them. He's got pictures of his trophies, but he don't need to keep all these trophies. He's got some trophies almost as tall as he is. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you don't have to keep all that stuff like a shrine in your house. So he just said, I decided to live in the present, which I kind of adopted that mindset also, to live in the present, not always living in the past or thinking too far in the future that you can't, enjoy the present. So I appreciated that. And when he told me those words, it made it a lot easier then to start getting rid of some of those things. Yes. And he's asking, it's like, yes, this is a floppy, like I said, but this is a 5 1/4 floppy. So this is old school. I got some 3.5s around here still somewhere. But again, all of them are, like I said, purging away. I got old VHS cassettes of shows that I used to record back then. This is before, video on demand. But yeah, these are just old relics, if you will, that I don't even have the software now to even read. I don't even know what's on this guy anymore. So yeah. So those are definitely things that that you have to let go of. And but like I said, it was yes, I was a victim of the RU screw. Yes, absolutely, especially when it came to term bills every year. So 100%. RU Rutgers University. That's anytime you had a problem with your term bill or something, or you didn't get a class that you wanted or something like that, or you were signed up and they said, oh, you don't have the class, so all kinds of things you had to take down to various offices. So they called it the Rutgers University screw, or the RU screw, back in the day. So those are the things that I was doing. So again, just the physically moving furniture and things around and getting rid of stuff. So all that plus the snow and the digging out and the ice and just all those things just had me, like I said, in a certain way. And I'm kind of mentally a bit exhausted from that. So definitely looking forward to a nice, relaxing weekend. But I'm, like I said, I'm talking to the wife about, we might want to get out of Dodge, find cheap airfare and get to some place just for a weekend, go down on Thursday, Friday, come back Sunday night, and just go back to work. But I think I'm needing that at this point. So I'm talking to the missus about that, we did get away a little bit, just going down to Atlantic City for a little bit. But again, you still got the winter, I just need some sun. I need some tropical. I need about 80 degrees. I need a beach. I need a nice cool drink in my hand and that kind of thing. I think that'll help me feel a little bit better. But in any event, guys, certainly as you guys come in tonight, certainly make sure that, again, any questions that you may have for us, certainly as a team, Again, we have our email. Okay, ask the coaches. Certainly you can certainly go there and send us NXT GEN training, next gen training 101 at gmail.com. Send your questions there, anything you may have for us, and we can certainly use those questions as show themes. And I would love to have just a whole show where we just do a Q&A and just deal with the questions that you want to have answered. So send your email requests there, and we'll be sure to follow up and have certain shows, particularly on those topics. But certainly we entertain any question. No question's a dumb one, and certainly we appreciate certainly anything that you want to give to us. But yeah, Coach, let's get into this. So we're going to start a series of shows talking about insurance. Now, again, a lot of our audience for this show deals with young people, and certainly I think that's going to be a main thrust of what we do through these shows. But because I know a lot of young people are like, well, what do I have to deal with insurance for? Like the only insurance that they really think about is maybe car insurance because, young people, you want a car and you want to deal with that. And in the future shows, we may deal with car insurance. But we want to deal with all types of different insurances over the next few weeks. So this is going to be sort of the themes that we're going to use going forward. So, certainly this first block. Oh, what happened to my? I think my presentation died. Let me see if I can just load it again. Hang on. But we're going to be dealing with the theme of life insurance. And you may ask yourself again, if you know, Gen Zers or even Gen Ys, like one of the last things that they want to have a conversation and talk about is life insurance. Or they say, oh, well, life insurance, that's for old people. That's for your parents or your grandparents or something like that. But a lot of times they don't think about, themselves. Do you, as a young person under 25 years old, do you have life insurance? And if you don't, why not? What is keeping you from that conversation of having such things available? So we want to deal with that. And something is happening with my PowerPoint where it's not giving me the slide. So I'm just going to talk through it until I can kind of get it fixed. But Coach, let me start with you. What was your mindset back in the day? You 21 years old, 23, say under 25, when it came to life insurance or whatnot, or were those things that you thought about or talked about? What was your thought process at the time when it came to life insurance?
Yeah, I guess just looking back, coming out of, my home, graduating, it wasn't really big issue, big conversations with my parents. At least I know I didn't hear any conversation regarding type of insurance, life insurance, anything like that. But surprisingly, my mother had a nice insurance policy when she passed, and all 7 kids were able to get a nice little chunk. Ironically, and it was a total surprise. And when she passed, when I joined the military is almost a place that they really want to do the best to prevent you from failing. So they would talk about getting life insurance. Of course, I joined when the Gulf War took place. So they would always say, get things in order when you go into war zones and things like that in case something happened. So that was always a big thing about life insurance. And typically it's best. The fact that I was in my early 20s, the rates were cheaper. So they was like, get it now if you have small children. You lock it in at a couple of dollars a month and you just go from there. And of course, we go get into the different types of life insurance. So that was something that was a conversation. I'll say I didn't take it as serious at first until I was about to graduate college. And then I said, let me go get some life insurance.
Yeah.
And I got a nice little rate. Of course, being veteran, they have certain little nuggets that you can get that, civilians can't get. So I just locked it and just let it ride out. That's been what? 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is a good time in my life because I don't have a lot of overhead.
Right.
And a lot of it just starts to, pay itself back to me.
Right, right. Yeah, no question. Yeah, I think I certainly got onto insurance, certainly before I was married. I know Anton, he talked about having life insurance is one of the key item couples must talk about, especially if you're going to or just got married. I started thinking about it before then, and I think this is an area, again, a lot of people think around that time is when you need to start talking about it. And really, even prior to that, you need to start thinking about if you're over 18, right? Usually that is when, and again, depending on the state or, where you're in and whatnot, but usually when it comes to your parents covering you some things. Now, I know with health insurance, which again, we'll talk about in the future show, I think it's mostly plans you're covered. You can cover your kids up to, I think, age 26. Unless they choose to, pick a health insurance on their own. But as far as life insurance, though, certainly that typically goes to some, beneficiary or beneficiaries that get that. But as far as for you and your situation, just because your parents may have life insurance, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have necessarily anything that's going to cover you. And so really what I want to kind of take the conversation tonight is, as a young person, to think about life insurance for a variety of reasons. So we talk about, again, 5 different reasons why to buy life insurance when you're young, right? So not just when you get married or have kids or, when you become older, but why it's good for a young person to think about it. And I think Coach had talked about it. Is like your premiums remain the same for the duration of the policy. All right. So again, you don't have to worry about, with inflationary measures and whatnot, the dollar doesn't go like it used to. You talk about 10, 20 years ago. And so certainly everything is more expensive now. And so again, if you lock in that rate while you're young, you don't have to worry about, just like the markets and everything else, you don't have to worry about your the premiums that you're paying fluctuating with the markets. Okay. So it's going to be there, and it's going to be at your cheapest. Because, the assumption they make is, a lot of these policies, you got to get a physical and all that, or at least, some health measure of your health. And typically, the younger you are, it's assumed that you're healthier. So again, you're more than likely going to get the lowest rates at that particular time. So why not lock it in? And again, we're not talking about, obviously if you don't have a job or career, the assumption is, okay, maybe you're just getting out of school, or you're starting a career young, and, you have some steady money coming in order to cover the premiums that you would be paying for an insurance policy. So certainly having a consistent rate, not worrying about trying to buy it 20 years from now, who knows what the price is going to be. Certainly that's one of the things. The second thing is, again, helps you build cash value. You can fall back on that. That only is going to apply to certain policies. So we'll talk about those. All right. If you're just getting a term policy, that may or may not apply in that situation. There's other instruments, if you will, that kind of can give that ideal investment strategy to protect dependents in the future. So again, if that is a conversation, maybe even if you're not with someone currently, but again, that is something that you plan to do. You want to get married, you want to have a family, you want to have kids. It may be better to start planning for some of that now versus later on. Increases discount levels on other insurance policies, especially if you bundle. I don't know, Coach, if you ever bundle stuff. So usually they'll give you like a discount if you get your car, homeowners, life insurance, and if you get like what they call an umbrella policy, that again, you can get some additional discounts off. They'll take, 5-10% off everything else if you kind of put everything together. And then again, your family's future is secure. That again, that's assuming that you want to have a family in the future. So why not, if those are major goals or initiatives of yours, why not set those things now versus, wait until you're 30, 35 before you start thinking about those things. You already lost an opportunity there. And again, we're not promised tomorrow. And then I think that's a situation that I think a lot of young people, even a lot of older people, you got people our age, Gen Xers, they don't want to hear about life insurance. Just like they don't want to hear about wills, or there's those health initiatives and things like that. A lot of our generation, Coach, doesn't like to deal with these things. But there shouldn't be necessarily an age where you think, okay, well, now it's good to do that. I would say as soon as you're able, maybe 18 might be a little young if you are, like I said, still covered by parents or what have you. But, if you're an adult, it's probably better sooner than later. But what are your thoughts on these reasons, Coach?
I mean, I think all of them are valid, and all of them definitely would be a good asset, a good thing to know if you're really looking to get insurance. Like you said, there are differences in insurances, and then just getting the insurance young. Like you said, you presume to be a lot healthier, so the rates are going to be a lot cheaper, and they're locked in throughout the duration of the policy.
Right.
Now, it is important that you continue to pay on it
Yeah.
until whatever time frame there is. And also, I think what we've seen recently with people who may not have insurance or have enough insurance to cover certain expenses in the event of the loss of a loved one, then we see these people on these GoFundMe's and
Yeah, we're gonna talk about. Yeah, we'll definitely
and
talk
so
about that.
I think it's important just if anything, just to alleviate that expense in case something unfortunate happens to you or a loved one who you may deem who could be high risk.
Right.
You know,
Gotcha.
so
Definitely.
definitely.
We'll definitely talk about that also. Now, again, Anton saying when he first went to the Army, life insurance policies varied from 50 to 200,000. Then it went up to 200,000. Now, isn't there a floor? So Anton or Coach, you've been in the military also. Is there like a base life insurance that the military will pay you just for being enlisted? If so, how much that is? And again, as far as the policies, do they just take that out of your monthly stipend? How does that work in terms of the what the military offers you upon enlisting, as well as the different policies that you can get? And again, how does that work? To just take it like straight out, just like your life and health insurance? Do they just automatically deduct that from your? I guess, do you call it a salary in the military?
Yeah,
or
you would call
or
it a
is it-
salary.
Okay,
Pay.
I wasn't sure, like a
Yes.
stipend. I wasn't sure what it was.
A lot of
Yeah.
times they just call it pay, military pay, but it's a
Military
salary.
pay, right?
Yeah. Now the caveat with if I'm in service and I have on the uniform, I've signed up to go into the service for a specific amount of time. My life insurance is automatically covered. There would be no
yeah.
expense that my family will have to pay to bury me,
Mhm.
unless they want to get a special casket. All of these other things add up, and this is where the life insurance policy. They have some. I get them all the time. Some basics like $25,000, and it can
Right.
go up to 200,000.
Right.
But that'll be out of your own pocket. It wouldn't be the military would take it out. It's just that you would set up an allotment, pretty much. You know how, just like your bank, but just what they call an allotment, meaning whatever amount you designate to be taken out
Mhm.
to go to an insurance policy, you can have them just take it out and pay directly to that agency, in a sense.
Right. Now that base that you said that you come in with is basically, is it like a cash value, or does it cover? Because I know the fact that my dad served in the military, he could be buried in any military
Yes.
cemetery. That's covered, and
Yeah.
spouse also. So both my mom and dad, they're both buried in the same the military cemetery.
Yes.
And that's covered. But is that what it is, or is it like a cash amount, like 10,000, 15,000, or it's just saying we're going to cover your burial expenses? So again, obviously, folks wouldn't have to pay.
Yeah, it's just covered. There's no cash amount because
Right.
if you go through the military for burial, then they cover all the expenses, like you said. Unless you do
Right. Which is, basically it's the same thing. I mean, it's obviously,
Yeah.
like I said, because if they didn't, then that would be cash that you would have to cover. So
Yeah.
definitely get that. But it's definitely, like I said, starting young. Also, if you're single. So again, Anton's talking about married. I mean, but again, there's other factors even when you're single. You know, if you have debt or others that depend on you, do you own a business? Again, paying final expenses. We did a show on the gray area, a couple shows, in fact, on death and death preparation. And we talked about the rising costs of funeral. I mean, minimum funeral costs certainly in this area is anywhere $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 minimum. And what's also been fascinating, because a lot of people said they would go the cremation route. Cremation is still cheaper, but the cost is growing. In fact, in Canada, cremation is the number one form of burial or funeral in Canada is cremation, and North America is grown dramatically, and with that growth, the prices have gone up. So like I said, $12,000-$13,000 for a funeral, but a cremation might cost you $7,000-$8,000 now. People think they're just going to get cremated for like $1,000. Those costs are going up as well, especially if you want to have like a similar service to a funeral, like you're going to have people gather, and there's going to be a minister, and there's going to be, so you got to pay for the seating and the arrangements and everything, and everyone's going to get a little piece. It can go up as well. So even cremations aren't as cheap as they have been in the past. And that is something to consider. It's weird. Like I said, we always talk about life insurance when it comes to the older person. But think about it. Even if you're 18 years old and you die suddenly, God forbid, your parents still have to bury you, right? They still have to. And like Coach said, I've seen GoFundMe pages or guys just hit me up. Hey, I need some cash. Mom died. Now the thing about it is, now your mom's already in her 70s already, right? 70s or 80s, and apparently nobody you didn't think about possibly in having her insured if they weren't going to do it themselves. Because I don't know about you, Coach, but a lot of old school OGs, they, like I said, they don't want to hear about life insurance. And if you even try to talk to them about it, it's like, I ain't paying no life insurance, whatever. But again, they don't think about the expenses that's going to be on the family that have to bury them later. And certainly even young people, especially, I would say even more so, don't think about what would happen if we had to bury you. If I had a son or my daughters, if I had to bury them, God forbid, I would still have to come up with that money somehow.
Yes.
Especially if they didn't have any life insurance on their own. So that's again, you have to think about those around you, not just yourself. But with Gen Zers and whatnot, it's all about self at this point. So
Yes.
But go ahead. You were going to say something, Coach.
I just wanted to add it in reference to how the military does it. They will pay funeral expenses within reason. However, they do not pay for cremations.
Really?
Yeah, it comes out of the family's pocket. Like you said, if they had insurance, they can cover it, but they don't pay for cremations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
but you get a flag and it's some things that they give you in memory of your loved one.
But so they don't have, the military, they don't have what they call like the mausoleums, where, if someone has their ashes and they put them in slide them in the, like I said, I don't know. I know they have, like I said, the military cemeteries. I didn't know if they had similar like to the mausoleums where you could just have your ashes.
I'm sure you've been to a military. It's nothing special about a burial site for military. It's
Honestly, the one,
sites, flags.
Yeah.
It's lined up nice,
yeah.
but it's yeah.
I thought it was pretty nice. I mean, the one my parents are in, it's a pretty nice. First of all, it's huge. I mean, number one, I mean, it takes. You can get lost in there. You got to get the map and drive to the right area, and then it's all kind of numbered. But I think it's a beautiful cemetery. They got some really nice setup over there, and so I, because certainly compared to other ones I've been to, it was on par, if not better. But and like I said, the land was massive. I mean, it's like it's from my area. It took me about an hour and a half to get down there. And it's a big plot of land, land-wise, and I mean it's but it's very orderly the way they had it. They were ready to receive us when we got up there. Stuff was there. From when my dad died, again, I got the flag folded up. They play taps, and so it's very I thought it was very nice the setup that they had. But yeah, but I mean, young people. I mean, you have to think about, um, you know, the burden that what would happen to you and the burden on your family. You know, hopefully your family's got money like that to do. But again, especially, and that's the thing too, especially with a young person. Again, you're not expecting it. So even more so to be caught blindsided, and then you need to come up with again $10,000 to $13,000 for a funeral, or $6,000 to $8,000 for a cremation. So think about that as well. In terms of is that fair to your family? Again, assuming you're on good terms. I'm not going to get into the whole family dynamic situation here. That's not the point. But again, if you are certainly on good terms with your parents and your loved ones or whatnot, you don't want to have that burden on them as well. So at least having some base insurance. Sometimes employers, a lot of times, will give you, again, a base life insurance that's part of your, that goes as almost part of your health insurance, or it's very cheap. I mean, it's like, $10 a month out your paycheck for like a $15,000 life insurance policy. So again, you're not breaking the bank if you have one of those. But, but if you're not thinking about it at all, then those are certain things that you need to think about. So again, Anton's confirming that cemeteries don't have mausoleums. Again, other factors, again, growing your wealth. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit. You want to lock coverage while you're, again, young and healthy, as we said earlier. And again, you want to leave a legacy, again, something even for your unborn. Let's say if you are young and married and whatnot, and what happens to, again, your wife, or if you do have young kids, you want to have something for them certainly in the future. So there's a lot of reasons, whether you be single, whether you be young, that's not a reason not to have life insurance, just like it's not a reason not to have health insurance. Because, again, you just never know what's going to happen at any given time. But I think a lot of times young people think they're basically invincible, and it's like, that's just not something I got to worry about at this particular time. But it's certainly worth looking into. And then we could just talk about, again, when you don't have life insurance. So again, the real, again, no money for your funeral, or people can't travel to your funeral, families forced to cremate. But again, even then, cremation is not cheap anymore. No grief counseling for devastated family members, no money to cover lost wages. Families may have to go back and work before they're ready. Family must repay debts out of their own money. I've had guys hit me up, say, "Yo, man, can I get $500? Dad died. Someone just died again." But this is an older person, so again, that should have been kind of part of the planning already, but no one thought of it, and now you have to sort of come up with something. So these are things that can certainly happen, and God forbid we don't want it to happen. But I think we've certainly coming out of the pandemic, and just certain things that are happening, certainly in the world today. Life isn't guaranteed for anyone. God forbid. What we're seeing, with the mass deletions in schools and things like that, it's just an interesting time, and so no one should be caught wanting. Without having these things protected. It sucks, but that's just, like I said, the world we're in. But Coach, any thoughts on this here?
The interesting thing about this will is that if for anybody, you notice that they're not numbered. So regardless of where you are in your life, that insurance will at least alleviate one or multiple of these, I would just call them plates. It would alleviate some, because, like I said, a lot of people, after the loss of a loved one, they don't really look at the fact that income is no longer going to be coming.
Mm.
That half of that income, especially for married people, long-term relationships, that income is no longer coming. So just to have that insurance in case someone leaves you, at unfortunate demise, then you have enough resources to cover you for. It's not going to, I say take you through the rest of your life, unless you have a policy that big, but it at least will alleviate some of that
Yeah.
stress to you able to at least try to downsize or just figure out another living situation or financial situation. So yeah, it's like I said, I would hope that anybody looking to get insurance, do your research to find the right policy for
Mm.
you, wherever you are at that time, and think about the
Yeah.
future. So so
Yeah.
yeah,
So let's talk about just some of these options. And again, like we're not financial planners and whatnot. Definitely, again, seek some counseling on that. Talk to an insurance agent, and certainly they can break down these options in more detail. But just kind of give me some high level again mindset. I think if anything is that we talk about on this show, and again, where we have influence, we want to get even younger people to start thinking about again the future and also again alleviating burdens on others. Again, this is part of adulting, and like I said, a lot of young people, it's like you just have no thoughts about things outside of your immediate circle or your immediate world, and so having this kind of mindset, I think, is just beneficial. But again, definitely consult an expert when it comes to the details. But just a few things just to talk about. So again, it's kind of three types of life insurance that's available. So you have your term life coverages, all right, term set for a period, 10, 20, 30 years. It's cheaper out of the options. Great for covering things, again, mortgage, income replacement while raising a family. And you can go relatively high on these policies in terms of coverage without paying. I remember I had one for years, and I probably paid under $100 a month for it. But it was, certainly it was a substantial amount, especially when my kids were young. I didn't want to have my wife struggling knowing that she's got these kids. Now that my kids are grown now we made some changes and adjustments now, so it's not as not as big as before. But when I got it, I was 27. I had some earlier. A friend of mine, I guess he was in Primerica. He sold me a policy. It might have been like $150K or something like that, like early in my early 20s. But then once we had our first, then I felt like I had to kind of up it a bit, and we had planned to have more kids. So I definitely wanted to get something where I knew that things were going to be secure, and I was in such good shape at the time that we were able to certainly get a reasonable rate for that as well. Now, again, we have other, to Anton's point here, absolutely, other than life insurance, couples need to discuss factors like power of attorney and living wills. Again, if you go back, watch one of our gray area shows where we talked about life and estate planning. We covered a lot of that in terms of POA. I was power of attorney for both my parents, living wills, also the health directives. What happens if your loved ones are in the hospital and whatnot? Do you want them on life support? Those kind of directives, initiatives. We went through all of that. So that's a show that you certainly go back to, look up gray area and look up that death planning. And we cover certainly a lot of those topics. We didn't go into life insurance, though, specifically, which is, again, another reason why we're covering it tonight. But certainly that should all be part of the mix and really part of your courting. And, again, if you're not willing to deal with these issues, or if you just go think about, just sell the timeshare dream, then, again, you're not really being serious about, again, the long term. And whatnot. So wills and everything. Now, the one thing I do need to do, I probably do need to update, because, again, my will was written when my kids were still young, so it's definitely we're at a point now where we probably need to go back and revisit that in terms of, making it more suitable for the time. But we got on that before we even had our first kids. We had our wills, last wills and testaments already drawn out. But Coach, any thoughts on the term life policies types?
yeah. I think the interesting thing about the term life is the 10, 20, 30 year policies. And this would benefit anybody young to maybe probably see about getting one of each, because then at some points down the line you're going to have some income coming in that could alleviate some debt that you accumulated, assist with buying a home, again, and just putting you in a position as you get into your 50s and 60s to be able to take more vacations, do some updates to your home, things like that, and getting them early, you get them at a low cost, and you know what I'm saying, eliminates a lot of the overhead. So I don't think people really tap into
Mhm.
that as much. Of and like I said, you can always say if you get one of each, you know, in 10 years, kids are coming to high school. You'd be able to alleviate a little bit of financial burden. Then, especially at 20 years, more than likely they're going to be in college or going off, creating their own
Mm.
careers, and you can assist without digging into your own resources with getting them on their, on their feet. Maybe if they want to buy a home, a condo, purchase a car, or something like
Yeah.
that, at least you have those resources. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Well, even still, you got to die first. That's the thing. I mean, you got to have now
what
the other one.
what a term insurance is. Yeah, I'm just speaking in reference to the term
Mhm.
insurance, just the
Right.
years. You can like if you get a 10-year policy, within after those 10 years, then you sort of can cash out.
Actually, no. For what I
You
understand,
can,
we'll get into the other two. But
yeah,
for what I understand, there is a unless you get one that's specific to that. The idea is
yeah,
the reason why they're cheap is because there is no cash out. You covered in that period, and when it ends, then you either have to re up and continue to pay or whatever. But as far as the ones where there's a cash out benefit, I think that goes with the
okay,
next policies that are available. So you got your whole life policies,
yeah,
and
yeah,
those have cash value. So again, with a whole life, you're gonna build over time. There's a consistent interest rate, and when after a certain amount of time, whatever that is, you can buy out, and you still keep the death benefit. So let's just say if the death benefit's $1 million, but you've been building over time. So really, a whole life policy is almost it's just like another investment strategy. Whether or not you were going to invest in the stock market or what have you, you would have you'd be building those funds. So some people use it as an investment vehicle as much as an insurance vehicle. You kind of get the best of both worlds. And so again, when you talk about long-term financial planning, towards retirement and all the things that you're talking about, Coach, I think this is where this guy's coming to play. But again, the trade-off is that they can be very expensive. So much so that when it comes to, one thing you have to be mindful of is if you switch careers or if you switch jobs or if there's a economy. Now, I had a whole life. I think I had my second child, and I switched over. Like I said, I had a Primerica policy. I switched over. Guy had me on we got a whole life, but even then, it was like $400 or $500 a month. Which, as long as you have a steady job or steady income, we were like fine. You know what I mean? Like it just. But what happens if there's an upheaval? Now again, I work in the IT field, and one of the biggest changes that happened in the IT field was outsourcing. So they started sending jobs overseas and to India, whatnot, and everyone's salaries got cut in half. You know what I mean? So it's like now you're in a situation where it's like, at the time, it was in my budget. But what happens, though, if there is a layoff, mass layoff, especially we've been seeing in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of these mass layoffs. I was just reading yesterday, I think UPS is looking to lay off 30,000 people in the near future. And what's happening at Amazon and a lot of these IT and tech companies, Google, especially with AI. So, again, a lot of these comfortable jobs that people had, they no longer have those anymore. So it's hard to have a strategy like this where you have to keep making those payments consistently. But if something happens to your household income where that's going to be paused, or you're in between jobs or whatever, you hope you can get something you're able to make the payments. But if something happens where you got to make some adjustments, but now you're stuck. Do I keep the policy? Or do you fall back? And in my case, I took a step back and I went back to just a term. I think I had like a 20, 25-year term or something like that just to cover in the interim, because the cost of trying to keep the whole policy up given the changes in my career. Really, in fact, like I said, it was a mass thing across the board, and you had a lot of IT people getting laid off or whatever because of outsourcing to India or to other countries. So this is something you got to be careful with. It's not a bad vehicle, but you got to be sure that you are steady or that your income is steady. And so for a younger person, this might be a more difficult to come off, because especially if you're young in your career, you're just getting established into things. One, if that's assuming if you can afford the premium. But then, how settled is a 21 to 25-year-old going to be settled in their career before they can say, yes, I can kind of commit to this? Usually I see a lot of people maybe later, 25, 30, or you have a family, you own a home, and things are kind of steady like that, where this policy will come in. But to Coach's earlier point, though, it does have a steady, consistent cash value that builds over time like any investment. So just like a stock or a bond, it'll pay you cash that, again, you can certainly take out against the policy and cash it out and use it for, like you were saying, buy a home or whatever you need, education, kids education, all that, and you still keep your death benefit. And some of them actually allow you to borrow against the policy. So let's say if you got $1 million policy, but let's just say if you have to borrow a couple $100,000, then some of them, and again, a lot of that depends on how long you've been in. They won't let you do that off the rip. But how long you've been in, how much equity have you built, and then what they'll allow you to do is you can borrow that $200K. So if you do die, instead of getting the $1 million, your benefits will get $800,000, because again, you still have to take care of settle the loan that was taken against the policy first, and then you get the remainder that was left over. But again, a lot of that happens at the end. Have you been making those payments consistently? How much equity have you built over the life of the policy? And you'll get that. They'll send you monthly statements or annual statements and let you know what your cash value is. And then they'll give you some options in terms of whether or not you want to borrow against it or whatever you want to do. So it's definitely, like I said, it's a financial vehicle, but it can be a bit more expensive, and you really got to be committed to it. And anything can kind of upset that. But Coach, what's been your experience, I guess, with whole life policies, or is what I'm saying, is that something you've heard also?
Yeah, that's where I sort of got it mixed
No
up
problem.
in regards to being able to cash out, and I don't think when I've seen people who gotten this type of insurance, they focused on being able to take money out at some point, regardless of whatever the situation may be. And you have to be very careful. Like you say, you don't necessarily, if you don't need to borrow against it, don't borrow against it. Let it run its course, and then use it when you really need it. Yeah, and I like the part about the legacy for loved ones, man. If you live it out or you looking to pass it on, then that's something you can always consider, especially when you have young children, college-bound, career-minded loved ones. Then it could be something to sort of allow them to alleviate overhead initially, as long as they continue to pay into the policy.
Yeah.
So that's
and so that's just a risk that you have to, but again, you just make sure that you are stable enough, or that your income is enough that, again, can handle that kind of, because a lot of times the what you'll pay depends on, again, they factor in your income and whatnot, so they'll come up with a calculation or a figure. Now, again, you don't have to necessarily go with that. You can take like half of that or a quarter of that, again, as long as you can comfortably afford what's there. But since it is like an investment vehicle, then it's like their thing is, I guess, well, the more money that you're making, the more you should be able to pay into this thing and build a bigger financial vehicle later. So they'll always try to get sort of like, kind of the maximum what you need to be putting in, because again, they'll say that it gives you a lot of advantages over, again, the stock market and bonds and other vehicles or whatnot. There's pros and cons when it comes to, this type of financial instrument versus other ones. They say the stock market could be life insurance. Now with this one, again, they give you a bit more flexibility in terms of premium and coverages. So again, if you get into a whole life, it's kind of like boilerplate. Like that's what you're going to be paying on a regular basis. The thing about the universal life, they do give you a bit more flexibility in terms of changing coverages and things like that. You can make adjustments to it. However, the rate of interest that you get is going to be based on the market. So if the stock market is good, you'll get a great rate of interest. If the stock market tanks, you won't get a great rate of interest. So again, so that's why a lot of people, at least who try to pitch or sell you life insurance, especially whole life policies, they'll a lot of times they'll prefer the whole over the universal because because they value it over the stock market. But for some people who want that flexibility, you get some of the advantages of the whole life, and that there's still a face value that you'll get, a death benefit that you'll get at the end. But as far as what your cash value will be, then that can vary, again, based on market conditions. And again, you got to ask yourself, is that what you want to weigh out? Here is I just kind of broke them down in terms of the split between the two. Again, whole, again, it's more stable, more straightforward, but again, you don't have the flexibility. Universal gives you more flexibility, but again, it's riskier because you're at the mercy of the market. But Coach, any thoughts on these types? Have you seen the universal policies? It sounds tempting, but again, some upheaval, especially now with the world. Every time our president talks about a tariff, the market reacts. So we just don't. So again, you got to have in all these things. You got to have some stability, which for some people a term policy may be more than enough. You don't have to put your money elsewhere where you think you might do better, and at least some of the basics in terms of, again, your life expenses and whatnot. At least those things are going to be covered. And so, but Coach, your thoughts on, I guess, the whole versus universal, or just for, these type of policies in general?
Yeah, I think the whole, I think it's a little less risky and it'll give you everything straightforward up front. I think that universal would probably be the most risky for anybody working, potential 9 to 5. If you don't have other residual incomes to sort of cover it, I wouldn't suggest that you get a universal policy. But again, check with a financial professional before you make the decision. Look at all possible policies available, and if you can bear the changes within the economy, and it wouldn't hurt your pockets either way, it may be something to look into. At the end, the cash out may be worth it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Just be careful.
Absolutely. Just got one more subject to cover here. Again, the fact that, as I said, we're not financial advisors. I'm sure you can go to someone and they'll give you as much time to kind of go over the options and whatnot, and based on what it is. But again, you're going to have to go through financial profile, give more, especially for these types of policies here. They definitely want to know more about your income, your investments. They want to see kind of what the whole portfolio is looking like before they decide on, what kind of policy. If you go here, a term, typically a lot easier to get, and it's again just less paperwork overall, and you can get a decent amount, at least a decent death benefit at a reasonable price if that's all you're worried about. But there's one other area, and again, since the focus of this show was on younger persons, it's another area here that I really want to kind of call out on. I know I have experience with this, Coach. I don't know if you've had it as well. The idea of, again, life insurance for your parents. And I know quite a few relatives, people very close to me, where again, their parents, I don't know, Coach, if your parents were like mine, again, don't talk to me about life insurance. Don't talk to me about this or that or whatever. God gives life and God takes it away. But for some people, they took proactive action and actually got life insurance policies for their parents. And so these are options available. You can get term life, and it works just like the regular one, permanent life, more like a whole life policy, but then also final expense life insurance, meaning like you can get policies. You can get like a $10,000 policy. In fact, I got that for my mom. And it was quick. It wasn't, because usually when you go through the insurance company, there's a wait sometimes, and a lot of times you're trying to put stuff together. These guys paid out as soon as I contacted the funeral home, and I just gave them the number and everything. The only thing they needed was a copy of the death certificate. They took care of it right in office. Boom, it was done. So there's certain companies, if it's not a life insurance company, there are companies that offer burial insurance, and it's typically for a loved one. So it's almost like they're pitching it to you, the young person, for your parents. And it was so clean in terms of how it was done. They took care of everything. And I was done in 10 minutes at the funeral director's place. And they kind of took it from there. All the conversation that went back and forth between the two. The only thing I had to do was buy the casket. And guess where I got the casket from, Coach?
Where'd you get
Costco.
Okay.
Look it up. Costco, they have very reasonable prices for caskets. Just Google it up, Costco caskets. Go there. They got the selection. You order them. It was cheap because the place I got my burial insurance from, they had a list. They had their prices told. And I looked at the site and looked at the prices. Costco was better. And Costco, they'll deliver it straight to the funeral home. So I just went there, boom, took care of it, picked it out for my mom and my dad. I went to Costco to get caskets. So again, it's cheap, and it was nice. Like I said, it was smooth as butter. So again, so these are things to think about as well. All right, if you have parents who again not treating this seriously, and you don't want to be the one to be caught up with some last expenses, especially if they're old, if your parents are in their 70s or whatnot, you don't want to be caught off guard. Like I said, friend calling up, I was like, why didn't you never took out a policy for your parents? And I'm not saying a big one. You don't have to, 2, 3. Now, some guys I know, they took out like big policies. Like, I don't know if they were just banking on or whatever. The dude was able to get like a 6-figure policy that not only covered the funeral, but he was able to take care of his own personal matters and last things like that. It said here, outstanding debts, financial stability. So it's just almost like an investment vehicle for them. That is almost, now some people may say, look, you're gambling on your parents' death. But again, being practical about it, again, nobody should be caught off guard when it comes to last rites or last, funeral arrangements. And so, again, getting at the very least, if you don't want a life insurance policy, at least a burial policy, it could be a very wise move to protect them, especially, and you want to get it too. The thing about it, you have to get it with your parents' consent. So again, if your parent, if they might be losing a little bit, I know some people get Alzheimer's and, just, forgetful and things of that nature. If you start to see those things coming on, then now that's the time to move, not only for your insurance, but like what Anton said earlier, your power of attorney. If they're willing to give you power of attorney or living will or healthcare directives, that's the time to do it. Because, especially then if you're the one that's going to be designated. See, in my family, I was by elimination, I was the one who had to deal with this stuff. So nobody else was like, just didn't want to take that on. So I was the one who handled that. And you need to, you need to have all these things ready. So again, even as a young person, life insurance for yourself if you really want to think ahead, life insurance for your parents. Shout out to Anton again. My sister set up life insurance for our parents for over 30 years ago. Later on, we found out that our parents already had life insurance that they set up 40 years ago. So they were ahead of the curve. But look, so I guess, God forbid when that happens, I guess you'll get two of them then. She set up one, so there'll be money coming out of that. But then your parents, now, did your sister keep the policy? I mean, is it still, is it still open? Is she still paying on it? Or just you gave it up when you found out that your parents already had one? I'd be curious to know that. But some people would actually hold on to it. Because, again, at these ages, death is assured at some point. And if you can get money to help, like you say, either cover their expenses, maybe they still had a mortgage they were paying on, or some other things that need to be squared away, those are things that, again, you don't want to be caught off guard with. And so, absolutely. So I think that's that was very forward thing. You said your sister 30 years ago. So again, I'm thinking she was a lot younger then. So again, young people start thinking strategically about your personal health and those who would be bearing the burden of your death, but also looking ahead to, again, your elders. I think these are things that, again, an adult, if you want to talk about this idea of adulting, these are things that I think we need to also be giving and sharing out with people when it comes to, again, how to take care of business. Yes, you got bills to pay your rent and mortgage and your car note and things like that, but don't neglect these areas also. These two are very important as far as, being a protector, being a provider to those around you. Those things are very important. But Coach, I think we can certainly land this plan. I don't want to go too long. Certainly on this, I think next week we'll cover health insurance. Especially for young people. Again, for a lot of people, health insurance isn't as big a deal because, like I said, if your parents work, most of the time, you're going to be covered to age 26. But certainly there's some things to consider when it comes to health insurance. But Anton's response here, my sister still has the policy. She added my brother and I to it when we turned 18. So your sister was balling back then. She was playing chess a long time ago where everybody else was playing checkers. So shout out to your sister for making sure that she wasn't just thinking about herself. She was thinking about all you guys. And the fact that she added you and your brother to it as well, that's a good sister. That's almost like a second mom there. That's the type of thing, again, that responsible grown people do. And, so again, salute to her, for making sure that she's covering her family in that regard. And that's a great example of that. And maybe, in fact, next time we have a show, I might want to have you on to talk about that a little bit. What was her thought process in getting that done, or the idea of her keeping it? What was the thought process there? But I think that's really great to share with young people that they can, certainly benefit from. That again, no one's caught off guard. But Coach, I think we can, certainly look to land the plane here. Like I said, for everybody else, definitely get the right counseling and advising on what works best for you and your budget and your situation. Have a good understanding of what your life situation is. If there's some instability in your life, as far as your career and whatnot, or your ability to pay these things, that's a factor that you got to be honest about. And don't get yourself into something that you can't get out of, because that's the thing too. Once you get, it's almost like a timeshare. Once you get into this thing, it's hard to get out. And you don't want to be in a situation where I paid so much into this thing, and now I can't, now I can't get out of it. So you don't want to be in that situation as well. So again, be honest about your objectives. Be honest about your goals with the advisor, and but at minimum have a floor of what you need, the necessities that you need in case of your untimely death. That's first priority. Then you start building from there in terms of what's good for the family, if you have children or or wife, or that down the line, those sort of things. You should start definitely thinking about. But Coach, certainly give you final thoughts. And yeah, I think we can land this episode nice and quick.
Yeah, me and my wife talk about this all the time, right? In the event of one of our untimely deaths, it would be important, right? Because we talk about, say, today is Thursday, I pass tonight. I don't want her to hold me for 2 weeks, 3
Yep.
weeks. You call everybody, you give them 72 hours or whatever. By next Thursday, I want to be laid to rest. And I say that I learned this with one of my aunts, my old aunts. When she passed, my cousin kept her 3 weeks before she passed. My aunt was my complexion. When she went in the ground, she was maybe Brother Payne's
Oh my
complexion.
gosh! Wow.
And the longer they hold the body, the more that insurance policy goes to the funeral home or wherever the body's held. So it's important to think about, in the event that someone does pass and you do have to activate the policy, everything is under a time crunch. So we like to hold on to our loved ones as long as possible. But if there's an insurance policy that's looking to pay out, just remember that the longer the body is above ground, the more money will be coming out of that policy. And the funeral homes do not mind waiting. They will wait as long as you want to. But remember, they have to get paid first. So be careful. And I'll say this last thing: when my mother passed, again, she had an insurance policy none of us knew about. And being that it was 7 of us, my mother was smart. She divided everything up with all the kids. And none of us knew. We were sitting around thinking like, man, how are we going to pay for this? Just so happened we got a call. Hey, how would you all like to receive your money? Huh? So immediately we said, hey, send it right over. Instead of us going through this big old soliloquy, everybody wrote out the money that it would take to put my mother to rest, and we just paid it out immediately and was done with it. And it saved a lot of strife within our family of arguing over money, things like that. A lot of that was taken care of. So it just behooves you to definitely salute to Anton and his family, man. They understood the bigger picture. Salute to your older sister for understanding her mission, and believe me, it eliminates a lot of stress.
Indeed. And just to show you again, as far as those whole policy, my mom, she actually had one also. Unfortunately, again, just because of her conditions and everything, again, we didn't know about it, but she paid into it, and so I got a call. But my sister was the main beneficiary of the policy. But the thing was that the total amount was only maybe about $150, $200. I said, you might as well just keep it. You know what I mean? It was because, again, she stopped making payments on it a long time ago, but it did build up. She did build up a little bit. Again, when things were good, when you're working, if you can stay consistent, but you got to be consistent over time, is when they pay off. But when they don't, a lot of that money that you pay, it kind of is almost like it's going down the drain. So just be mindful of that if you decide to take one of those things off. And again, I know in this economy, with things being in flux, people changing careers and jobs and moving in the different directions and whatnot, like I said, have a floor at minimum. If you think you can, be a bit more aggressive, you can certainly look at them as financial instruments and whatnot, but look at all your options, not just those, certainly with a term or life, no matter how good it sounds. Everything has pros and cons to it. Stock market does, real estate does. All you need is just a turn in the market, and because everybody looks for the next boom, right? The homeowners boom in the 90s, that was going to be the great thing, and then the internet came out in the 2000s. And everybody was going in thinking they were going to be, online trading, and everybody was going to be a millionaire, do online trading. And then YouTube got big, and everybody was going to be making all this money, having hundreds of thousands of subscribers. There's pros and cons to everything, and you got to be mindful where you decide to put your money and your investment and your time into, and see are you getting the benefit from it. So again, from these two ball guys, just keep that in mind in everything that you do. Research, but ultimately pick the options that work best for you and your goals and your future, not someone else's. But with that, we are going to certainly look to land this plane. As coach, I appreciate we spend more time during the week. We got the Wednesday show that we do on BMU. We come here, and but I always appreciate you sort of going on these platforms and shows with me, and just sharing your wisdom, and I just appreciate any chance I get to strong, good brother, and I just really appreciate your just really appreciate everything that you're doing out there. And I hope you're feeling better, and I hope you feel better soon. Hopefully you get, so I get some therapy, some relief that you can start, getting back and put some iron in your hand, and, but.
Hey, man, look, I just appreciate that, what you just said, man, and salute to you and your family, man. When I see brothers like yourself in our pain, man, it puts me in a mind state to always try to be better, man. We don't have the way. We just have a way.
Perfectly said.
We just don't want people to follow who ain't got no way. And again, a lot of these things, hopefully over time, people will start to see a lot sooner than most of us out here who claim we are elders in adulthood, but the information is there. Please utilize it. Again, we are just two hardworking individuals who put in our work, and we have the mindset and the understanding and the knowledge, and still gaining knowledge about how to be better and address certain things that wasn't addressed when we were young.
Yeah. And I like what you said at the beginning of the show when you were talking about how you just like to just learn, right? Reading, watching things. I'm the same way. I watch very little network television or series. I don't care if it's on Netflix. I don't watch a lot of shows, dramatizations and whatnot. I'm mostly on YouTube. Learn, like you said, I learn about animals. I learn about science. I learn about history. I learn about how to. I just like being in that mode. And then I think for both of us, I think that's in part what's also keeping us young and active in these spaces. Despite our ages, there's still a curiosity about the world that we want to certainly pursue for ourselves. And then hopefully we can then give that to other people in a way that, based on our experience, that then they can understand. So this is what I really appreciate about, again, both of us, that we have that curiosity. I would say for anybody, I don't care if you're 8 or 80. Always be curious about the world. Never think that you know too much. Always try to learn a different perspective and how we got here. Because they always say those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Learn how we got here, I think, is also very important. So with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Certainly for myself, Mr. Bennett, and for the coach in the building. This is Next Gen Training here on the Sparta HQ Network. Make sure you hit that subscribe button shortly before you leave the show tonight, and also consider becoming a subscriber to the network. We're very close to monetization, and so definitely looking forward to stay tuned to the network. Again, we got tomorrow night. There's the wrestling show. I may be actually on that show because I think Swell just hit me up. He may be running late. So again, we got a wrestling show tomorrow. We got the Next Gen Training on the Hangout show on Saturday, and then the Gray Area show on Sunday. So we got shows pretty much 5 days a week here working on the channel. So again, I'm sure you'll find something to your interest. But for everyone who's in here, I got Craig from the UK. Again, thank you for coming in as always. Doing fine. You guys, again, enjoy your night, enjoy your weekend. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time. Good night.